This video is for all my marketing freelancers out there who are juggling multiple accounts, multiple tools, wearing multiple hats while trying to make that money. Welcome back to Weekly Tips for Marketing Freelancers, where I break down how to use ClickUp to make your business and your life easier. On today's video, I'm going to show you what I think is the most powerful feature of ClickUp. And we're talking about one place, one list where you can project plan all of your clients in one spot. We're talking about a master task list. And we're not going to individual client folders. We're not looking at everything in isolation. This is one place. And I'm telling you, this is going to make your life so much easier. Now, typically when we project plan our client work, we look at each client in isolation, right? Like I would be scrolling through this client's list and looking at what tasks I have due. I would maybe change around the due dates and just like kind of play with it in that way. And that would be how I would project plan it. But what this doesn't take into consideration is how those timelines, how the amount of time that each of these tasks takes is going to impact the other work I have to do for my clients, right? Like if I'm a solopreneur, which I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching my videos are, it's just us doing this work. So we have to be really mindful of how much capacity we have, what our bandwidth looks like. And we get all of that delicious insight when we look at things from the client work level, right? So if you think about how ClickUp works, our spaces are nested, right? So any space that is within, any folder that's within a space, you're going to see all of the tasks at the space level. Like that's the most powerful part of ClickUp. Honestly, I didn't even use it for the majority of the time I've been using ClickUp until recently to see like, wow, this is incredibly powerful. So now at the client work level, I get to look at all of the tasks, all of the projects across all of the clients that I have within my client workspace. So why is this powerful? So it's powerful in the way that, as I just said before, we can see now every task that we have to do by day, or, if I'm looking at the task view, which I like to look at specifically the most because it's the actual work I need to do, I can look at it by due date and I can look at it by time estimate. And I can say to myself, like, okay, this isn't actually feasible for me to get done in a day. Now that's assuming you've set up all of your tasks with that information keyed in, right? So even right here, I have 2 tasks in here that I haven't put any time estimates for, and I'm already at 4.5 hours for today. Realistically, I'm probably not going to get all that done. 4.5 hours seems, plus there's these 2 other tasks. So right away, I can see that this is not feasible, right? So if I was going to each different folder and thinking, okay, looking at this client's task, this client task, I may not realize that. And I might fall behind on my deliverables and push things out time and time again because I'm not proactively planning. So that's the first way in which this is helpful. It's just in terms of our bandwidth as individuals. And we have like this workload view, which I have at my client work level. This would be really helpful too if you had other people working with you. And what it does is it breaks down for you the tasks that you have assigned to you for each day. And let's say you have a start date and an end date. So it's not all due in one day. It's going to divide that time up across, like evenly across the days in which you have it assigned to you, right? So for example, this refined landing page messaging, I have 2 hours estimated for that. So it's going to give me 1 hour on Wednesday and 1 hour on Thursday. So just kind of, that's another way in which we can look at these views of our time that we're scoping for ourselves to be able to spot out these different times when we've overloaded ourselves with work and we're never going to get it all done. So the second way in which this can be helpful is in a timelines view. So this looks a little muddy right now, and I'll tell you firsthand that the filter that I was using for the new product feature that's come out for ClickUp called task types, it has disappeared. So you can see in here, it's like there's a bunch of stuff. I've got timelines, just important dates that are showing up here when they shouldn't be. But use your imagination and think about this, how this could look for you, right? So assuming that you're using a start date and an end date for all of your tasks, you would have a timeline here that you could actually look to the future and say, okay, I see I have a little bit of availability coming up in October with confidence, right? You can actually look and see when there's time in your calendar when you could take on new clients. Before, you may not have known confidently when you could take on new clients and just like decided to fit them in whenever they were hoping to get in, and accommodating their schedule. So now this kind of opens up another opportunity to have a timeline view that we didn't have before. So we now have better workload management, and we have better timeline setting, expectation setting for new clients and new projects to come into our ecosystem. So how do we set this up? Okay, so a couple of things to note. The first thing that's really important to note is that it's really helpful to use a streamlined approach to statuses, right? So this is, again, if we're thinking about how ClickUp nests. So at the space level, all of the folders and the lists within that space are going to show up here. Now, if we're using all different statuses for different lists, then you're going to see all of those statuses show up here. But because I'm choosing to use the same 3 status approach across all of my lists, then all of those tasks will show up within those 3 statuses, which makes it so much cleaner to look at and a lot nicer to work with. If you wanted to use custom statuses, so if you're somebody who wants to create content inside of ClickUp, which I would definitely recommend that you do, instead of using statuses to kind of go through the different the different phases of your process, you can use a custom field instead, which you can see that I have here: ideation, execution, review, finalizing, completed. So in place of that, I'm just using open. You can see it's still the same 3 status approach. So that's the first thing to consider, is your statuses and keeping them consistent. The other thing is to create different task types for entries that aren't deliverables. So I'm always going to encourage everybody who's using ClickUp to put everything to do with your business inside of it. And sometimes that involves things that aren't tasks. For example, I just showed you these videos. This is a great example. If you're creating content inside of ClickUp and you're using each task as a post, which is how that process works, you can see here these icons are different. They're little video symbols, and that's because I've created a task type called videos. I've created one for social posts. I've created one for offers. So it just it separates them from tasks in the same way that in the first and the second video, we talked about milestones being separate from tasks as well. It's just another way to let ClickUp know that these are different and should be managed differently. Now, as I said before, this filter for task type has disappeared. This is one I created before this new feature came out, so this is not the correct thing. What I would do when it comes back, because I know that it will, because you can see here, right? Like here are the things that aren't supposed to be here. We don't want my offers to show up in my PM view where I'm only meant to be looking at, actually here, these are milestones. So is a milestone. So that's how we make that work. And if you want to review again how that works to use milestones to indicate your projects or your larger sets of deliverables, go back to video 1, I believe. 1 or 2, I'll link them both because I can't remember. And that will help you understand why, what this looks like and what this means. But if you're planning to use ClickUp in this way, and I would encourage you to, once the filter comes back, you can use task types to keep things out of here that don't belong out of here. The PM view is only meant to showcase milestones, or as I said, track deliverables. So we get this beautiful percentage completion, as we talked about before. In my task view, it's the same thing. This should only be showing us real tasks. Now, if I scroll down, let's see, are any of those other ones showing up? They're not. Interesting. This is a quirk that's come up literally today, and I've debated not creating this video just simply because it's not there anymore, but this stuff is going to keep evolving and changing in real time. I know that the filter will come back where I can be task type is not video, is not email, is not social post, is not past or a tool. There's many ways in which we can filter that out, but I would just encourage you to use task types once the filter comes back to make sure that you're only looking at the real deliverables at your client level. All or your client work level. So that's point 2. Now, the point 3 that I would like to make is just to make sure that you're including the breadcrumbs, or like the titles of the folder names and the list names, so that you can see very clearly when you're looking in this one consolidated like master list which client it pertains to and which type of work it pertains to, right? So very clearly here you can see this is Robin Hickey Consulting task, and it's underneath of my content creation folder. Or this is a Physio Mentors task, and it's under their content creation line of work. And the way in which you do that is to choose customize, list options, and then you have task locations and subtask parent names. That's actually another thing that could be important to include, since we are using subtasks as separate tasks, which I also mentioned in the other 2 parts of this 3-part series. So if this is feeling a little over your head, make sure you go back and watch those other videos, because all of these parts kind of come together into one. And that's really it. That is the 3 considerations for using this view. But now, like, think about how powerful this could be for you when it normally feels like you're just kind of keeping your head above water, managing multiple clients. Like when it feels like maybe your task management system is just adding extra work to your plate. If you're managing team members, for example, like this can be the place that you all come together to look at the statuses of projects, to plan out your tasks, right? And keeping in mind, like, we're not project managers by trade. Like, people go through school to be project managers. So because we're not project managers, we're going to be moving timelines around. We're going to be coming into our projects every single day and making adjustments and adding new tasks that maybe we forgot. And that's okay. But that's why this view is so helpful, because it allows us that flexibility to kind of be moving things around and treating our business as if it is all these moving parts, because that is just the nature of doing marketing, or really any type of business, but specifically marketing, because it is, there's so many elements that are always changing, and timelines are changing, and things are always changing. So this is meant to be that one single source of truth. It's a place for everybody in your business to come to know what is due, when, across all of your clients, and be planning in a way that's actually going to make sure that things get done in an effective timeline. I hope that's really helpful. Please, I have a newsletter, and if you want to sign up, you'll get weekly tips just like this, talking about new releases, like this new task type that I just talked about, coming up with different ways all the time, keeping you up to date on what's going on in ClickUp as it pertains to running and building and growing a freelance business. So if you want to sign up for my newsletter, I'm going to have the link in the description. Please do. I would love to see you in your inbox and give you even more valuable information, keeping you up to date on everything that's super important in ClickUp. Okay, wonderful. Let me know if you have any questions, and until next week, I'll see you then.